Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It's 7:06. It's O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in this busy Monday morning, the 31st day of March. We're saying goodbye to March, hello to April, and there's plenty to get to. At 7:35, Jackie Gingrich Cushman is asking the important question, why don't we have a John Adams Memorial in this town? Kind of an important founding father. It's weird that he's not represented. First resident of the White House, I'll have you know. We'll talk to her about that. At 8:05, Asra Nomani's been doing the deep dive into who's behind all of these Tesla protests, the day of action we saw over the weekend. And at 8:35, Governor Scott Walker, as we just discussed about this Wisconsin Supreme Court election. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock, who's a loving wife and very pleased that her husband is back in town.
Good morning. I am.
Shouldn't even need to be said, but, you know, it's important to lay that out there. Joe diGenova is a loving... Always. Joe diGenova is a loving husband, and he is joining us now, as he always does at this time. So much to get to. Joseph, how are you? Happy spring to you, my friend.
Oh, absolutely delighted. Happy to be with you all.
There's a lot to discuss. I want to start with James Boasberg and his daughter, who works for one of the nonprofits who is specifically sort of connected to protecting illegal immigrants and trying to keep them from deportation. Boasberg, of course, the judge who tried to stop this deportation in midair. Now, there's no direct link between his daughter's influence, but is this the kind of thing that even the appearance, Joe, should preclude a judge from ruling on something like this?
Well, this is a very interesting situation because what you have is the appearance of impropriety and the appearance of influence from his daughter. This happened in New York with Judge Merchan. The exact same problem. His daughter was involved in high-level Democratic Party activities, and he was an illegal donor to the Democratic Party. With regard to Judge Boasberg, the canons of ethics are very clear that whatever your wife or other family members do is not necessarily a basis for you to be recused from a case. The problem for Judge Boasberg is that the cumulative impact of all of the things around him, including his own personal attitude and smart-ass actions on the bench and snarkiness against Donald Trump and public speeches that he has given, like his fellow cohort, Beryl Howell, who's the former chief judge on that court, who has made outrageous comments about Donald Trump both on and off the bench. The problem for Boasberg is he's all of a sudden in the middle of everything. From out of nowhere, he gets 4 big cases, allegedly selected on a random basis on what they call the wheel at U.S. District Court, with which I'm very familiar as the former U.S. attorney there. The likelihood of him getting those 4 cases is astronomically high. It's beyond numerical question. So what do you do about that? Absolutely nothing, because there's nothing you can do about it. So what do you do?
Joe, real fast, you said the way they select the wheel is this like a Wheel of Fortune thing? Do they literally spin a wheel to figure out who's going to get whatever case?
They have a box full of cards and things. I actually don't know how they do it anymore. Knowing the way we live today, it's probably an algorithm, and it's probably fixed.
Yeah, I was going to say but that should be transparent considering the ramifications, I would think. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Well, the bottom line is he looks bad, he acts bad, and yet there's legally nothing you can do about it. And the Court of Appeals is never going to remove him from a case unless he does something really stupid outside the courtroom, like give a speech, like some of the other judges on the court have done, and embarrass not only themselves but the court.
Well, meanwhile, on Friday, a federal appeals court cleared the way for President Donald Trump. I cannot believe it takes a federal appeals court for this to actually be allowed. But this federal appeals court found that Trump can fire members of the executive branch right there, the executive branch. But again, this is a win for the Trump administration, right?
Yes, this is the building case where Trump loses in the lower courts, wins in a higher court or the highest court, like he did on presidential immunity. This is going to happen continuously. The issue though, for the Supreme Court is, remember, we all know this, they missed a golden opportunity a couple of months ago when they could have intervened and said they can stop this $2 billion in spending. And they didn't do it by 5-4 with Barrett and Roberts voting the other way. The Chief Justice Roberts, who cares so much about the court as an institution, is doing so much damage to it by sitting there. He thinks that by playing possum, he's helping the court. By allowing this incredible, egregious, and clearly partisan activity by U.S. District Court judges, all of these preliminary injunctions that are nationwide, almost 100% Democratic judges, it really gives folly to his suggestion that there are no Obama judges, there are no Bush judges, there are no Trump judges. That's BS. These judges, unfortunately, in the modern era, have become extremely political. They give speeches from the bench and off the bench, which are clearly designed to indicate a political bent. And so he's going to get lucky, that Trump is, and win some cases in the courts of appeals. He's going to lose some, like he did the other day in the D.C. Circuit, when those three judges ruled that Judge Boasberg was right. And, of course, Judge Boasberg is wrong on the law. Everybody knows that. This is a political decision. It involves foreign policy, the military, national security. A federal court has no right whatsoever to be interfering in the deportations of Tren de Aragua, members of a paramilitary organization, which has invaded the United States. So we'll keep watching and see how many judges finally figure it out.
Well, and Joe, one of the things that we always hear about our feedback of segments with you is that people learn so much. And when they say, well, the courts have a say in this, they're a co-equal branch of government, just like Congress and the executive branch. That's not actually the case, is it? In fact, Speaker Johnson raised this last week. The Constitution specifically delineates the Supreme Court as the judicial branch, but these federal courts, listen to the Speaker.
We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. So stay tuned for that.
So I'd love for you to sort of extrapolate on this, because people don't realize, I think, in many cases, that other than the Supreme Court, everything else is under the purview of the legislative branch. They can fund it, they can create it, they can dismantle it if they wish. And if these judges continue to overstep their constitutional boundaries, is that the appropriate action? Yeah, considering the fact that the Supreme Court Chief Justice, Mr. Roberts, chooses to stay quiet, as you said.
It absolutely is the proper thing to do. Let's remember, we've been discussing this. Under Article 2, there is one person in the executive branch. It says the executive branch shall consist of a president of the United States. That's it. He's the only person mentioned in the executive branch. That means all federal employees are inferior to him and can be dealt with. I don't care what Congress has done over the many years by creating so-called independent agencies and all of that. As far as I'm concerned, all of those independent agencies are unconstitutional. Similarly, in Article 3, there shall be a Supreme Court of the United States, and such inferior courts as the Congress shall determine to exist. Congress can defund those courts. They can eliminate them by law. They can change their jurisdiction. They can take away cases from them. The federal courts are not inherently constitutional. They are creatures of federal law. They can be eliminated. They can be constricted. They can be restrained. And the Speaker Johnson is absolutely correct. They can fix this. They can eliminate national injunctions. They can eliminate certain courts physically. They can say that courthouse is now closed and not funded. They can do that. And these judges act, these district court judges act as if they are the Supreme Court in these cases. By the way, the law is very clear. The Supreme Court has said this many times. Matters involving foreign policy, the military, and national security are not the province of federal courts. This Tren de Agua deportation is a classic example of that, and courts should not be involved in this.
All right. We're going to continue with Joe diGenova. I want his legal opinion on what we just shared with you, this presentation by Elon Musk and Antonio Gracias in Wisconsin about the absolute skyrocketing number of illegal immigrants who were handed legal Social Security numbers and what they're able to do with it, the registrations to vote, the actual voting by these illegals for the last 4 years under Joe Biden. We'll get Joe's take on that in a moment. First, though, at 7:16 here, I want you to hear Antonio Gracias in this presentation last night in Wisconsin. This is to get support for the Wisconsin Supreme Court race tomorrow. We'll get Joe to chime in on both of these things, but listen to this.
When we saw these numbers, we were like, what is this? In 21, you see 270,000 people, goes all the way to 2.1 million in 24. These are non-citizens that are getting Social Security numbers.
Yeah, this is a mind-blowing chart.
Yeah, just this literally blew us away. Like, we went there to find fraud, and we found this by accident.
Joe, people see this and they say, hold on, how is this possible? How can we illegal immigrants get to this country and immediately receive a Social Security number so that they can work? And Lord knows what you can do once you have your Social Security number in this country.
This was the exact plan of the Biden administration to allow in millions of illegal aliens, figure out a way through the refugee program and other parole programs to let them in, quote unquote, legally, and find a way to get them Social Security numbers and driver's licenses so that they could eventually sneak their way into voting. Once you get the Social Security card with this illegal program that Biden had established, you get a driver's license. Once you get a driver's license, you can register to vote. Once you register to vote, you can vote. You can vote. The preliminary inspection of Social Security by the Tesla people, as I call them, the Musk people, was, in fact, they found 1.2 million at a minimum who had gotten their Social Security numbers through this mechanism that Biden had created. This was a slow coup that Biden did. And it was designed not by Biden personally, he's too dumb and out of it to do it, but by the people around him. These were the Obama leftovers who had designed this program to change that. And this relates directly to the Wisconsin Supreme Court, because that election for that court is all about one thing: the redistricting of congressional seats in Wisconsin to gerrymander Republicans out of office. And that can be accomplished even through the courts rather than through voting. So this stuff is all finally coming to roost, and it all looks pretty ugly.
Joe, what is the process of, they said that some of these cases have been referred for prosecution, but what is the process of getting these people off the voting rolls?
Well, that's up to local people. In other words, the federal government notifies them that this person is an illegal alien committing a crime by voting in an American election, and it's up to the states and the localities to remove them from the voter rolls. Well, the federal government can't remove anybody from a voter roll.
Are they required? I just feel like, here in Alexandria, Virginia, where every government official, state government official and city government official is a raging lunatic leftist. So are they required to remove that person, or can they just kind of look the other way?
Usually by state law, they are required to remove that person, and it would be up to the Attorney General of the state, like Mr. Miyares in Virginia, the Republican Attorney General, to order them to remove them, and if not, to litigate and sue them. And in some instances, it can be a crime to continue to do that. They could be charged with a conspiracy to violate the election laws. Now, in all of these jurisdictions where things are going crazy like this, you generally have local prosecutors who are crazy leftists, the Soros people. So you're not going to get that. And the state attorney general in Virginia, most state attorney generals don't have the right to bring criminal cases in most types of cases. They have some jurisdiction, but very, very limited. It's always left to states' attorneys.
Joe, one other item. I don't know if you saw this, but there was an op-ed published, I believe it was in the Wall Street Journal. It was by two professors from the New York University School of Law, NYU, that right-wing bastion of conservative MAGA America First. Samuel Esteracher and Rudra Reddy were the authors of this, law professors. And they said, the headline is Revisiting the Scope of Birthright Citizenship. And they said, yeah, there's nothing constitutional about this. These are liberals, Joe. And they're basically saying, yeah, there is no constitutional entitlement to birthright citizenship, so-called. and none of the preceding Supreme Court decisions back to 1879 should codify the way that this is being implemented right now. I found this to be an incredible advance in this conversation.
Well, I think, first of all, the Trump thinking on this through his executive order is absolutely correct. There is nothing in any of the Supreme Court decisions that says an illegal immigrant coming across the border and then having a child, that child becomes a citizen. That's baloney. The amendment which created the 14th Amendment, which created this issue with birthright citizenship, was designed to ensure that slaves and the children of slaves were citizens and had the right to vote. That's all it was for. It had nothing to do with illegal immigrants in the 21st century streaming across our border, having babies, and then becoming basically anchor parents as a result of having a child who is a citizen in the United States. Anchor parentage was never intended to be created by the 14th Amendment. The professors are absolutely correct. Now, the question remains, will the Supreme Court, if it gets the opportunity and a challenge to the executive order reaches them, will they take up the issue? The answer is they probably will. And if they do, I think Coney Barrett and Roberts will make it 5-4 that there's birthright citizenship absent a constitutional amendment. I don't think they need that, by the way. I think you can change this by statute. I think Congress can say that Congress can interpret the Constitution. The Supreme Court is not the only person who's allowed to interpret the Constitution. Congress can say the 14th Amendment was not intended to create birthright citizenship for illegal immigrants coming across the border. And that would be the law, and that would be it. And then the Supreme Court would have to rule on that and turn it over. But the bottom line is this can be dealt with. And Trump is right.
All right. Joe, like I said, we're always smarter after a segment with you. We appreciate it. Lots of stuff we got to this morning, always, as usual. Thank you, sir.
Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:37, O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in this busy Monday morning, the 31st day of March. We're going to cover we already have in the midst of covering all the important stories that you need to know about and probably won't cover in the other avenues of media that you're used to, Washington Post, CNN. Don't count on them. Count on us. Coming up at 8:05, Asra Nomani will reveal what she learned in her deep dive into who funded the Takedown Tesla movement over the weekend. It's all AstroTurf. 8:35, Governor Scott Walker on the Wisconsin Supreme Court vote. It's Larry O'Connor along with Alexandria's favorite daughter, Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Morning, Julie. And joining us right now is Jackie Cushman, Jackie Gingrich Cushman, chair of the Adams Memorial Commission, president of the Adams Memorial Foundation, and unsurprisingly, we're here to talk about an Adams Memorial. So, Ms. Cushman, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on this morning.
It's one of those things where you don't really think about on a regular basis, but then when somebody brings it up, it's like, oh my gosh, that's right. What is that all about? We don't have a memorial to John Adams, one of the most critical figures in the American Revolution, in the forming of our government, our first vice president, our second president, the first resident of the White House. And yet here in Washington, D.C., there's virtually nothing acknowledging this man.
I mean, you're exactly right. And it's so interesting because without John Adams, it's very easy to argue he would not have become a country. I mean, Washington was known for the sword. He actually is the one that nominated George Washington to be our commander-in-chief. And then you have Jefferson behind him, who is known for his pen, but he was the voice of the revolution. He was the one arguing in the Continental Congress day after day after day about why we needed to declare our freedom.
Well, and I, of course, only know this not because I have any sort of understanding of American history, but I just love Broadway musicals. And, well,
Oh, yeah.
Right? William Daniels as John Adams there in 1776. Right there, Jackie, he should get a memorial for inspiring that great musical.
Oh, my gosh. I cannot believe you played that. That is fantastic. I recently rewatched that musical. It is fantastic. It is really, really good. So if anyone's listening wants a great evening of entertainment, 1776 the musical. But you also have, for John Adams, you have obviously the HBO miniseries, right?
Yes.
Which was so good. I mean,
one of my favorites.
Award after. Oh, it's fantastic, and that's days of entertainment. And then you have, for John Quincy, you have the Amistad movie by Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
With all this information, but he's so overlooked.
It was sort of the first that everyone they were sort of the Kennedys of their time, right? I mean, the Addams dynasty was phenomenal.
And also, I mean, he wrote all these love letters to Abigail. Which we still have a lot of those letters, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. So the Massachusetts Historical Society has them, and they have them online. So if anyone wants to peruse the letters. But there's a recent book out by Randall Woods called John Quincy Adams, and this memorial is for the Adams family, specifically John, Abigail, John Quincy, Louisa Catherine. But John Quincy was interesting because he went overseas at the age of 11 with his father, when his father was serving, overseas as an ambassador. And he then ended up serving as our president and went back to Congress for 17 years. So his life expanded an incredible portion of our founding, and was kind of the youngest founding father because he was trailing after his father for years.
Yeah, no, incredible. The Addams family was incredible. Don't even get me started on Uncle Fester's contributions to the Revolution and all those important.
I do always think about. I constantly think about that when we're talking about it. It's hilarious.
So, Jack, explain to me what is the move here to get a memorial finally here in Washington, D.C.? What are you hoping to get here? And the timing couldn't be better because we've got our 250th anniversary coming up.
Absolutely. So we're right here on the cusp of 250 years. And there are a couple of reasons that I think that he and his family are extraordinary. Like you mentioned, they're a dynasty, but not so much a political dynasty as a service to their country dynasty, which is something we really need to talk about, how important it is to serve our country. But what we're really focusing on now is we have a congressional commission to build this memorial. It needs to be reauthorized, which is very standard. This happens all the time. It takes quite a while, as you can imagine, to build in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And then we're also looking for the addition of some land near the White House because, as you mentioned, he was the first occupant of the White House, and so the proximity near, near the White House, the proximity near Washington and Jefferson. Obviously, we don't want them on the Virginia side, but think about how important the New England colonies were in the beginning of our nation, and how there's actually very little representation in Washington of New England, and very little, obviously, for Adams. But there needs to be recognition, and they're just an amazing, wonderful family.
And where, so you've sort of identified an area near the White House, or has it not been identified yet?
The process itself, what we're looking for, so there is an area already identified for us called Area 1, which is kind of the area around the mall and the reserve. And then we want to add an additional area near the White House, which is currently an abandoned building. But the process is long and involved. The process will include, the site selection and then design, just to make sure that everything, fits within the topography of the area. So it's a long involved process. But part of the other thing we're doing is really working on education and educating people about the Adams family because they were so prominent and they are so important.
All right, we'll leave it there. Is there anything? Do you need public sentiment? Do you need people to sort of rally to the cause?
Absolutely. So if you, we have a website. It's the Adams Memorial. Easy to find us. We follow us on social media, post, repost, and just join us on this very fun adventure.
Absolutely. And again,
really
back to
appreciate
the
being
musical. 1776 is so much better than Hamilton. My God, Hamilton is just, I like Hamilton, but it doesn't hold a candle to
It's nothing.
1776.
It's exactly right. This is the precursor. So much better. Thank you both
for joining us.
Great
it. Stuff. Jackie Gingrich Cushman at 744.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Yuppers, 7:50 here on O'Connor and Company, and coming up in a moment, we're going to have Asra Nomani join us. She's done a deep dive into this organized a planned protest. Jasmine Crockett was talking about it in a Zoom call last week. March 29th was Tesla Takedown Day. Also Jasmine Crockett's birthday, so she was sort of connecting the dots there. It's my birthday. How great it would be to take down Tesla. And you had all these protests going on, and they're super organic because everyone hates Tesla and hates Musk. And understand what they're doing here. They may object to what Musk is doing, so what are they doing? They're going after his business interests. They're trying to hurt him financially, hurt his shareholders, hurt people who drive Teslas and publicly shame them for driving the car. Instead of actually arguing the merits of their position, Julie, instead of actually engaging in a public debate, they just destroy. It's funny. After 4 years of hearing Biden screaming about how MAGA Republicans are the greatest threat to the democratic process in this country, or as they put it, democracy, when after January 6th, I mean, there really wasn't anything other than protesting what many believe to be an inappropriate election process in 2020, which I think the evidence bears that out in many respects. But other than that protest on January 6th, you didn't see MAGA Republicans, saying burn down things and vandalizing and all of it. But here we've got Democrats who are only 2 months into the Trump administration, and they're going after a private company with vandalism, fires, firebombing.
Well, and I got to tell you, the vast majority of the people that are showing up to these protests, I mean, these are, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way. I mean, these are boomers. These are much older people that I guess are trying to relive their Woodstock days or something. I don't know, but it is a much older crowd. Retirees maybe looking for a little pocket cash,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's funny. A lot of people were watching these, following them, recognized that right at noon, everyone just stopped and walked away as if they were on the clock, Astra Nomani, who's joining us at 8:05, did a deep dive into the organizations that set this up and publicized it. Out of Seattle, out of and yes, it's AstroTurf. This whole thing was not a grassroots protest. Our friend Sean Spicer was sort of trolling the crowd in Alexandria, and he did a live stream of it. Here, take a look at his video, or take a listen.
Hey, good Saturday to you. It is 81 degrees in the border here between Arlington and Alexandria. Behind me, a Tesla dealership. This is how a bunch of area residents are choosing to spend their Saturday. Let's take a look.
So sad. He makes a good point. It's one of those beautiful days of the year so far. Peak blossom, cherry blossom. These people are happy holding up signs that say "Kill Elon Musk" and "Burn down your Tesla." It's
Nazi.
Just joyless. They're awful people.
They really are.
So Astra's going to tell us who paid for all of that coming up in a moment. And was that on 1.5 speed or something with Sean Spicer? Is that really his voice right now?
It.
Is that what he sounds like?
I was waiting for you to do that.
It's 7:53.